Welcome to Globe Watch with me, Charles Ebuni. We are 7 billion in the world today, according to the United Nations, and out of that number, 4 billion citizens consume information online. That is, they are digital citizens. Amongst the associations fighting press freedom in the world in a media environment which is becoming more and more open, you have the International Union of La Presse de la Francophone, alongside other organizations such as the Commonwealth and Reporters Without Borders. What makes them so particular in their message to deliver quality journalism to consumers across the world? ZARA, welcome to Globe Watch.
Thank you.
Yourself, you are an editor-in-chief of the Yerevan Courier, which is, of course, the headquarters or capital of Armenia. Let me start with one of the most contentious issues of our generation as journalists. Fake news. How recurrent do you publish it in your web-based newspaper?
You know, Charles, we are facing the fake news problem almost every day. I guess we're not alone in Armenia. It's the general problem today. So, of course, we try, first we try to work with the professional journalists, which are, I won't taken, but anyway, which have some ethical principle. That's the first, to be a professional. And the second one, of course, if we meet anyway some fake news, we just try to explain as kindly as possible to our audience and also to our journalists that it's not the real way. It's not the way to achieve something in your profession. So it's always kind of explanation.
Of course, you said just at the beginning of your interview that this is something we face on a daily basis. At the International Union of La Francophonie Press Association, is this a major preoccupation for this lobbying group?
Sure, it's one of our major preoccupations. Besides, we had a big international conference a couple of years ago, which was precisely about this topic, fake news, and how to fight against them. So, of course, it's our preoccupation, but it's not the only one, I can say.
Sure, it's not probably the only one, and we'll go into the other issues that you tackle. You have been existing for years now. You just said that years back, a conference was held to see how you tackle fake news, which is feeding our newspapers, emanating principally from Facebook and other social media sites, where it is an open door for everybody. What concretely has the association done to produce a policy guideline for journalists of member states?
So we're working just now. We're working for a guide for journalists, which is being realized for UNESCO. It's not about only the fake news. Again, it's one of our major preoccupations, but unfortunately not the only one. But we are right now working.
Is it the top priority of all your preoccupations? Because I'm sure you have to handle issues of press freedom, press liberty, the difference between press freedom and liberty of expression.
Sure. They are all our priorities because you cannot imagine you say the fake news is a problem, but the lack of the press freedom isn't. You cannot. All those topics are very important for us as a journalist and as an international association, of course.
Sure. You are in your current mandate alongside your president from Senegal, who himself used to be the boss of large media conglomerate in his home country, just like yourself, managing all these issues. Which are some of the key problems that or challenges that the Union of the La Francophonie Press Association is handling today?
They can be followed by the topics of our symposiums and our conferences, which we are organizing almost every year. So it was women in journalism, women issues in journalism. It was fake news. Of course, it was the last one. Besides, was the migration issue, which is a very important issue, unfortunately now worldwide. So all those issues are also the topics of our events, big international events that we organize.
Sure, they are big issues, but to many a listener following me will ask that, well, where is the link between migration and a press union? Where is the link between migration and women issues? How do you explain that to my audience?
Sure, that's a very direct link, because first of all, we are, as you said yourself, we are an international organization. So we have more than 50 countries that are a part of our union. It's a very big and a very old NGO. It's besides the very first French-speaking NGO in the world. We are even before we were sorry we were born even before the OIF, Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie. That's just to explain you the story we have. Okay. So the link is very direct because we have the journalists from all over the world, and for many of them, the topics such as, for example, the migrations, it's not only a theoretical topic, it's something they are facing in their countries. Look at what is happening right now in the Middle East. Look at what is happening right now in Europe too, with the migrants who are arriving every single day. So it's really a worldwide problem. It's related directly to our everyday life.
Sure, affects our daily lives. I want you to explain to me how does the La Francophonie Press Union operate within its member countries. You are dealing with rich countries, you are dealing with poor countries, you are dealing with North countries, you are dealing with tropical countries, you are dealing with countries that are democratically advanced, you are dealing with countries that are emerging nations. I don't want to call them dictatorships or whatsoever. It depends on the expressions you want to use. How do you end up on the same table with these varieties, big and small countries?
That's a very good question. First of all, there is no link at all. That cannot be a link without the principle if its country is rich or poor. It's the very last thing we're interested in. Okay, so the principle is we are dealing with local sections, what we are calling local sections. We have one of our, besides best sections here in Cameroon, which is very dynamic, which is very well organized, which is very well acting on the everyday basis. So such sections we have more than 50 now all over the world. It can be in Europe itself, it can be in the Middle East, it can be in Central and Eastern Europe. We have many very dynamic sections, of course, in Africa, here, in Maghreb also. So it's really a worldwide organization which is based on professionalism and on the enthusiasm and dynamic growth of our member.
Okay, now let's talk issues of press freedom in the work of the of your association. Each time you hear that a journalist has been arrested, and I'm sure that you work in partnership with NGOs like Reporters Without Borders, like the International Committee of Investigative Journalists and the International Committee of Journalists, all those issues either based in London and whatsoever, Paris, New York, and other European countries. When you hear that a journalist has been arrested, how do you guys figure out the situation?
Yeah, you're very right saying that we are working with our colleagues. They are colleagues, they are also our partners. The organizations like Reporters Without Borders, International Federation of Journalists, and many others. So we are really partners, and I guess we are very complementary each to another. Okay, how are we acting? The first way of our reaction is, of course, we are issuing a communique a special issue of our newsletter, a communique. It might be something directed to the large audience. It might be also something directed to the government, or to the.
Let me put the question this way.
Yeah.
Imagine that you are an editor-in-chief.
Yeah.
Imagine that a journalist working with your newspaper, he's caught on a crime,
Yeah.
or maybe was caught in a rally, maybe involved in one work of activism, which was not directly linked to an issue or an article published in your newspaper or broadcast in a radio or television framework of an established media. The question is, a journalist has been arrested, detained out of professional activity. How do you intervene? Because the general question is that a journalist has been arrested, but he was arrested out of extra professional work. How do you do lobbying in such a case as an organization?
You know, I guess it's a very general case also.
As you know, we are living in a legal world too. There are laws to be respected.
In the legal field, a person, an individual, is not guilty since he is not be proven as a guilty. So it's absolutely perfectly applicable also to our organization. It's also applicable to the law in general. So of course, maybe it's...
Well, most people will tell you that that is the principle of the Anglo-Saxon law, that you are found innocent until you are proven guilty. But do you know people who are not working within the prism of the Anglo-Saxon law may see the interpretation from a different perspective? You are part of the Napoleonic law system, or if you like, what they call in French law system Jacobin.
Oui, c'est ça. Oui.
How do you explain that?
Anyway, you know, I think that even in the Napoleonic Code, you're very right to recall it, this kind of accusation is too heavy to be made without being sure the person is really guilty. So we will defend the person, and we will ask for right and for right justice, if I may say, till it's proven he's guilty or not, or her.
In a moment, we'll talk about the successes of what UPF has achieved over the years. Of course, you came into existence even before the International Organization of Francophone was created. But first, what are your current initiatives worldwide? You are dealing with a community of plus 50 states. In reality, there should be roughly 83 countries as part of the members of La Francophonie.
There are 88 countries in the La Francophonie, Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie, but it's another organization.
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
so we have 53 country members in our organization, which is once more Organisation Internationale de la Presse Francophone.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's a professional organization.
Absolutely.
Okay. So why, you know, the best answer to your question is the reason why I'm here now, what we are doing on a daily basis. We are here now with the President Madiambal Diagne to meet the authorities of Cameroon for the some organizational issues for the upcoming big international conference, which will take place in November 2019, right here. So this is a typical event we are organizing every year.
Well, your association should be one of the largest media gatherings in the world, roughly 400 journalists, bringing them together. You are the chief scribe of that association, which means that you run the day-to-day administration of such a bogus system. How do you network with all the journalists and all the media organs that are part of the association on a daily basis? It should be too much work for you, right?
It is a huge work, but anyway, well, as I said previously, we were very well organized in the countries, which is of a great help for us, because we have in every country which is a member of our union, we have a local section. And it's first centralized in the section, and then all the informations, the membership, the issues, the proposals, all that is coming to Paris because our headquarters are in Paris. That's the way of our organized.
Oh, sure, the way you are organized. In the moment, I said we will talk about your successes. When you look at the global media outlook, you look at the various associations that intervene in the defense, in the advocacy of the protection of the rights of journalists, of the protection of freedom of communication, be it on radio, be it online, be it on TV. What do you consider as the outstanding achievements amongst all the organizations that exist? Like the Commonwealth is doing something, Reporters Without Borders is doing something, the International Committee of Journalists is doing something, and if you can go on and on and on about all of this.
As I said, we are really complementary. We are not at all in a competition with other organizations for a simple reason that each one has its own strength. Okay, each one also has.
And my question is, what is your strength?
We are based. We are organized on a basis of French-speaking professionals. Okay, so in this regard, to be French-speaking means also to have some culture in common. When I am talking about culture, it means that we have, as I said, many countries which are very different, different religiously, different culturally, different geographically, different in very numerous ways. But anyway, we have this in common, which facilitates the communication, but also the mentality, because once you are a French-speaking professional, you have access to the French Francophone, which we are calling culture, which is not only French.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So you have a series of values, you have a series of ideas that you have in common. This is our strength, number one.
Months back, the Director General of the TV5 Monde Media Group, which should be one of the largest media empires in the world, was guest on this program. And he said that one of the major challenges facing the media landscape in the world is the advent of cyber communication, or if you like, cyber journalism. What concretely is the La Francophonie Press Union doing in this area so that the discourse can be shaped? As you know, elections are becoming more and more contentious. That is democracy at play. You can take the 2016 elections in the US, those in France, and all the discourse which were involved about Facebook, tweeting, and all the hullabaloos which were involved. What are you doing concretely to make sure that professional journalists progressively incorporate bloggers and whatsoever to be responsible in writing? Because we see that from time to time there is a shift in the professional code of conduct as taught in school. It's
a general problem once more. It's not only a problem for the French-speaking press, French-speaking media. It's a general problem, absolutely. So, which is very important. Are you
organizing refresher courses for the media of these countries to abreast with the new challenges of the global communication skill?
We're organizing several trainings. First, conferences, symposiums, big international events, and also, of course, trainings. And I can tell you that those trainings are very well received.
Is there a manual? Because from time to time we hear this country has its own way of doing it. Is there a manual that binds the organization to go that, look, these are the kind of principles we abide to in terms of writing, in terms of scripting, in terms of writing online? Is there a manual you have produced, something that looks more legal?
Right now working of one of those manuals.
What can we have the insights of some of what you are drafting?
Yeah, sure, but maybe a little bit later, because it's just a project now with UNESCO. I can just tell you that this kind of manual is being realized in partnership with UNESCO, which is one of our major partners. Okay, and it's about once more migrations issue in the journalism and the way that journalists are facing migrations issues. It's really a manual that will be prepared.
Last November, I was in Paris in France to attend the Paris Peace Forum, which was the very first initiative, and I met the Secretary General of Reporters Without Borders, pledging for a new charter for press freedom and for how journalism should operate in an open internet world. Is UPF part of that world that believes that there should be an online legislation on journalism, on how we should report?
It's an issue about journalism, deontology and ethics. Okay. So we're working very close with Reporters Without Borders. They have their own directions, we have ours, so we're very complementary, and we're working on our issues.
I know that when you go to a country like Rwanda, because of the 1994 genocide, expressions like cockroach are not used because they simply mean extrajudicial killing. When you go to a country like South Africa, there is a language you cannot hold. I know that you have a history of genocidal experience, which is considered the first in the world, although some may reject it, including Turkey. What are some of the words or expressions that may be found contentious when you use them to an Armenian audience, for example?
You mean regarding the genocide, or in general?
In general, for example.
You know, Armenian audience is a very open audience. We have a chance to have a very open,
it's democratically matured, right? If I understand what you are saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, of course, that we had a revolution called the Velvet Revolution last year, which was a very peaceful revolution. Okay, so we have the chance to have a public that is open and not that judging about expressions or words used. They are looking into the meaning, not into the words. Maybe.
Can you tell me some of the specific issues that are considered as key challenges to the Armenian press? You are part of that environment.
Very general issues, which are democracy on the first hand, press liberty, expression liberty. That's all, because we don't really have the threatening for the journalist to be imprisoned because you have written something. It's a very liberal, very open press in this way. But the rest remains the same.
Your mother organization, the International Organization of Francophone, just had a new Secretary General from one woman to another woman, talking about Louise Mushikiwabo from Rwanda. Now you understand why I'm using a lot of Rwanda in this interview. When you look at the future of the press and its relationship, particularly with UPF, how do you see it in the years to come as the online press is increasingly becoming the main consumption environment, plus 4 billion citizens, part of it, out of the 7 billion in the world today?
Yeah, you know, the online press is becoming a general phenomenon, and I guess even very big editions like The Economist and also
the New York Times,
New York Times, becomes absolutely become more and more online.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think it's the future of the press in general. Okay.
And is UPF doing something in that direction? Have you already capped on how you should shape your future in that direction?
We're thinking about this. We're thinking about this. So one of the ways to think about this direction is the topic we have chosen for this year, international conference that will take place here in Yaoundé.
And what will be the topic, and what will you be discussing? I was just coming to talk about that.
A very interesting topic, because it's about the journalism of emotion and the journalism of information, because we're all human beings, Okay, we're journalists, we're professionals, but we're also human beings.
Absolutely.
So when we're working, of course, we are trying to give the information as objective as it's possible, but we remain with our culture, with our proper views, with our preferences.
Probably the last question, and we separate. Of recent, you hear expressions like journalists, the enemy of the people. During the Gilets Jaunes movements in France, I've seen journalists being attacked during manifestations. Are you worried about the security of journalists in the world today and those of La Francophonie press space in particular?
Yes, I'm generally worried about journalist security in the world. It's absolutely important to protect journalists from, in some cases, from the official side. I mean, from the police, from the army, but also in some cases from the populations.
The Secretary General of the International Union of La Francophonie Press Association and Editor-in-Chief of the Yerevan Courier, thank you very much indeed for being guest on Globe Watch.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.